Hey everybody, I hope you guys are all doing okay. My name is Ali, and I would like to welcome you to the start of a brand new project. We're gonna be playing Might and Magic VIII, and I am really excited about this one. If you've been following anything I've done on this channel, you might already know that I've done playthroughs for Might and Magic VI and Might and Magic VII, and now we're gonna be doing Might and Magic VIII, which is the last game in what I consider to be the definitive Might and Magic trilogy. Now, of course, as you can tell simply by the numbers, 6, 7, 8, there were games before this. They're pretty good games, 4 and 5 especially. But before this, it was a completely different kind of game. The engine and the gameplay completely changed with Might and Magic VI, and the same thread carried over into Might and Magic VII and then into Might and Magic VIII, and this is kind of the grand culmination of all of it. And now there are entries in the Might and Magic series after this game, but they are very, very different. I know I've played Might and Magic IX, and I know there's a Might and Magic X, and then there's some other spin-offs, but those, again, a very different feel, made by different developers too. So this collection of 3 games, they kind of share a similar engine, similar gameplay, similar feeling, and this game is kind of I know critics probably feel that Might and Magic VI, I guess, is artistically the best game in the series, but this one is my favorite. It's got the most polish. It's just so much fun, and arguably, it's much easier than the other games. So if you're a difficulty junkie, you know what? You can go do your solo night runs in Might and Magic VI. More power to you. But this game is it's almost like a celebration of the tools of the trade that these developers put together to make these games, and it's kind of just giving the player a chance to have some fun while also telling a reasonably fun story and exploring different environments. The usual things that made the previous games so great are also here, but what I love the most about it is just that it's just, in my opinion, it is just the most fun game. So we're going to be playing this, but as you've probably already also gathered from not just the title of this video, but also the thumbnail and the title for the series, this isn't going to be a normal, regular playthrough, no. This is going to be a completionist run. We're going to be doing a 100% run for this game. Now, for games such as this one that were made prior to the kind of gaming ecosystem where we have now, where achievements and everything are so tightly quantified and defined, with this game we're gonna have to do a bit of work, simply first of all to define what it means to 100% it, and then of course to do it. For the most part, the objectives are going to be obvious. We're going to be doing, I don't think I even need to mention that we're going to be doing the main quest. Even if this wasn't a 100% playthrough, we'd be doing that, just by virtue of playing the game. So that's one thing. We're also going to be doing every single side quest. That's another thing. And again, something that you might do even if it's not a 100% playthrough, just because, completing quests gives you rewards and all that good stuff. And in addition to those 2 things, this is where kind of it becomes a little bit more subjective. What do you need to do in order to claim that you've 100%ed this game? And I've got a list of things, and some of them will be tedious. I will freely admit that. I don't know if I'll off-screen any of it. Probably not. I'll just give a disclaimer in the beginning of the video that something boring is about to happen and you're free to skip it if you want. I'm thinking, especially when we're grinding for things like, you know, like challenges, and you know, those challenge pedestals similar to what we had in Might and Magic VII. We have those in Might and Magic VIII as well. So some of that grinding might be a bit repetitive. Some of the alchemy might take a while to do, you know, so there's going to be tedious things like that. But there's also going to be more fun stuff. Like, obviously, one of my objectives is to find all the secrets, all the fun, all the points of interest in this game. We're going to be encountering all of them. That is a must for me in any completionist run for basically any game. We're going to be doing that in this one. And we're going to be encountering all of the different races slash classes. Now, I've phrased that awkwardly because the race class, like the character system in this game, is a bit different from what it was like in the older games. In the older games, you picked a race and a well, Might and Magic VI, you just had a class. Might and Magic VII, you had a race and a class. Might and Magic VIII, you kind of... it's hard to explain, but you have either, like... you pick one thing, but then that thing could either be a race or a class. So for instance, your character could be a knight, or a cleric, or a necromancer, which in terms of race are all human, but them being human won't be mentioned on their character sheet. But your character might also be, you know, a dark elf, a minotaur, a troll, or a vampire, which are less... they're not so much classes as they are distinct species or races. Although vampires, it's arguable. It would depend on what species they were before they turned. But you know, let's not go down such a pointlessly nerdy rabbit hole so early. But you get what I mean. It's a bit different. But one thing that this game will allow us to do that previous games didn't is that over the course of a single playthrough, we'll be able to see all of the different races slash classes slash whatever you want to call them. And that, I think, is a lot of fun. One thing that always... it didn't really annoy me, but its absence was always something that was conspicuous to me. That, you know, in Might and Magic VI, there are 6 classes, we can only pick 4 of them, so there are 2 we'll never get to see. Similar logic for Might and Magic VII, but in this one, we'll at least be able to see all of the classes within a single playthrough. So that is one good thing that I like about this game, is that it allows for an even more complete version of a completionist run than some of the previous entries in this series. And I've been talking a lot about different things. I've kind of just been mentally avoiding, dancing around the one most difficult, the elephant in the room. The one big objective that I need to do in this series is that, of course, similar to what I did in Might and Magic VI, similar to what I did in Might and Magic VII, I need to find all of the artifacts in this game. Now you'll note that I've made a very strong declaration: find all of the artifacts. Whereas in the previous 2 games, Might and Magic VI, Might and Magic VII, I said we'll find artifacts until we hit our limit, because in those games, once you found 13 artifacts, you were done in terms of finding them in random loot, and the others you could only find if they were predetermined to be in specific places. You know, like Mordred or Excalibur in Might and Magic VI, and I think there are a couple in Might and Magic VII, but eluding me right now. That's the game I know the least of. But in this game, things are different in that there, I'm pretty sure, is no artifact limit. Or if there is, it's a very, very high limit. I must confess, I've never previously gotten every single artifact, but that's because I've never previously played this game with that objective. Now that I'm playing this game, like it's been years since my last playthrough for this game, and over the course of those years is when I developed this kind of a completionist urge when it comes to video gaming. So now that I'm back to it, I'll be able to play it in a different way with this specific and very difficult goal of gathering all of the artifacts. Now, here is where things get tricky. It's because finding all of the artifacts, even when we had only 13 to worry about, was a challenge, because this game loves to screw you out of finding your artifacts. The reason is because the game keeps a list of artifacts, and each of them will be generated into the world only once. And once they've been generated, if you don't pick them up, they are gone forever. Meaning, for example, in Might and Magic VI, the moment you enter Dragon Sand, it's got a bunch of high-level chests in it which could have artifacts in them. If you enter that area and you leave and you don't come back before that area resets, they are gone forever. So you've got to plan things properly if you want to collect all of the artifacts. And the same applies to this game, where there are even more ways for the game to screw you. So not only will there be things containing artifacts, but some of them are going to be hidden chests. So for example, in Ravenshore, there's going to be a tree. You know, the first time you play, you wouldn't even think that there's anything special about that tree, but in fact, the tree is a chest, and the chest is scripted to always have one artifact in it. And if you don't collect it, and then Ravenshore resets, then whatever that artifact was is gone for good. But here's another problem, is that even if you open a chest that has an artifact in it, sometimes the item won't... So the arrangement of objects in terms of where they are placed within a chest can be random, but that poses a problem, is that sometimes the items can spawn in an arrangement where not everything can fit. And if you get one of those bad arrangements, and if the item that was left out was an artifact, then once again, you've lost it. Although you can fix that by kind of, you know, going back in time, loading your game, and trying again. But the problem is that if it was a chest that only had a chance to have an artifact, you might not even think that you lost anything. You might just think, you know, that's what you've got. And the way I dealt with that in Might and Magic VI was I would load over and over again, opening high-level chests just to make sure that there wasn't something big that the game was trying to spawn into awkward positions. So that's another thing that we're going to be doing in this game. Now, a few of you, I'm sure, no doubt, will be quick to point out that there is one very easy way to fix all of this, which is to install the Greyface unofficial patch. And I am aware of that patch. I've actually played with that patch, but none of my recorded series, they're all without the patch. Now, the patch helps you, well, it fixes a lot of things, it improves a lot of things, but in terms of looting, it helps you in many different ways. I believe there are 3 different ways that it helps you make sure that you're not accidentally leaving stuff behind in chests. Number 1 is that if something doesn't spawn correctly in the chest because the game didn't arrange the items properly, you can loot everything, then go out and then open the chest again, and then the other items will be spawned into the now empty space. It will also... There's also an option to disable the random arrangement so that items are packed more efficiently. And this also will reduce the chances that you'll miss something on the first pass, although if you miss something on the first pass, then you can get it on the second pass. And I think this one I'm not sure about, but I think there's also an option for the game to spawn, to have a priority in terms of which items it spawns first and which ones will get left out if the arrangement becomes awkward and crowded. And it can be set to spawn in the more expensive items first. And if there's an artifact, then of course it'll be the most expensive item in that particular container. So, great way to solve this problem. However, I am not going to be using the gray face patch. Now you might be wondering why. The answer is, well, there are two different answers to it. Number one, as I mentioned, I'm coming back to this game after a long time, and I really, really want to lean into the nostalgia. I want to remember what it was like when I played it as a child, and as a child, when I played it, we didn't have the gray face patch, you know? We had to walk uphill both ways. But it's not just that, it's just the feeling of the game becomes a little bit different when you have this unofficial patch. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with the patch, just that it feels like a slightly different game. And I want to play the version of the game that I played. It's like straight out of the box, install the CDs, this is what you've got. Although, I believe the GOG version also installs the official patches on top of everything else, which I also installed eventually, so you know what, we had those. So that's one reason I want to keep true to my memory of the game. But the other reason is, this one, I will freely admit, might be a silly reason, and if you think it's silly, I don't blame you. The reason is that I almost like the challenge of fighting against the game's various bugs and glitches and poorly implemented item management system, and then getting all the artifacts and succeeding despite all of that. Something about that just felt really good, because I remember in Might and Magic VI, when we found that 13th and final artifact, it felt so good. And I can tell you, it would not have felt that good if we had the gray face patch and it was just guaranteed that we'd find all 13. The fact that I had to try hard to get them, and that I did eventually get them, made it so much more meaningful. So that is the logic that I'm going to be going into with this game. Now, the problem here is that, like, again, I'm going to have to plan things carefully if I want to get all the artifacts without losing all of them. But there are so many more of them. There are more than 40. I don't remember the exact number, but there's a huge amount. And whereas it's one thing to play in a weird, constrained way until you get 13 of them, it's slightly different to carry that on all, like, until you, like, for like 3 times as long. Like let's say there's around 45. I'll remember the exact number once I start my playthrough. I promise you I've done my research. It's just that numbers, like specific numbers, is something I've always had difficulty remembering. But you get my point, is that it's gonna be a much, much bigger challenge. And the entire time, with no gray face patch to help me, I'm gonna have to worry about those, hidden chests that have artifacts in them and not forgetting them. I'm gonna have to worry about crowded chests that sometimes might have multiple artifacts in them. I might have to worry about, like, there are instances in the game where artifacts spawn on the ground. We'll cover that later. Like, there's so many more ways that this can go wrong that it really is a daunting challenge. And I have to say there's a bigger question mark over whether I'll be able to do it. Like, it's as big as the challenge is, I'll tell you that I do believe that I'm up to the challenge, right? And I think simply trying to do it is going to be fun. So this game, this playthrough, really, like everything else is gonna just happen. For me, the core of this playthrough is gonna be, can I get all the artifacts? It's gonna be, I think it's gonna be an epic contest. It's gonna be a battle for the ages. It's gonna be a showdown between the unstoppable force that is this game's hilariously broken loot generation and distribution system against the immovable object that is my own stubbornness, my almost pathological willingness to save scum, to spend hours loading my game over and over again, hours of my life that I'm never gonna get back, to just keep doing that until the game gives me what I want. And at the end of it all, we'll see which of the two is gonna prevail. And the series is just starting. I'm not doing that thing where I record the entire series and then start uploading. This is very much a live series, so you can leave your predictions, whether you think I can do it, and we'll see who's right in the end. But I'll be honest. I think I'll do it. I'm feeling confident now. You know, you might think my confidence isn't warranted. You know, you may say that I'm a dreamer, and you know, in this case, maybe I am the only one. But I do think that I have a plan that will work. Although, you know, I've talked the talk, it's gonna be time soon to start walking the walk. And on that note, I've covered just about everything. I spent the bulk of this video talking about artifacts because that is the main thing that's gonna make or break this run. And the rest of it, I've either mentioned briefly or I will mention as things come up in the game, as we encounter different game mechanics. I haven't really gone into detail about how the game works because, you know, at this point, I've done Might and Magic VI, Might and Magic VII. I've already explained the basics. It's time to now just move on, and I will explain how things are different in this game compared to the others, but there's not going to be as much tutorializing as there was in the previous two games. So yeah, I think those are all the points I wanted to cover. It's been a bit of a more disorganized introduction to this game. I will say mainly because the whole thing about the artifacts really is, I mean, it's exhilarating, but it's also daunting. It's always on my mind. I'll be talking about something else, my mind will always go to those artifacts and can I get them all? But once again, that is something that this playthrough will eventually reveal the answer to. So alright, that is going to be all for this introduction. When we come back, we are gonna start our game. We're gonna do the old character generation and we are going to jump right into this wonderful, wonderful game. I hope to see you then, and until then, take care.